jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
It's fine. If you got to go, just simply
Yeah.
say, okay, just say so now, and I just know where to insert a commercial break.
Yeah.
So, yeah, here on this episode, I'm going to have JJ Bruno, Daniel Ryan, and Tony Jantz all just drop in to just kind of list the 10 best Bill Shatner roles. He's been a cult actor who's, as well as blurring the line between, great actor and, infamous actor. He's reinvented himself multiple times. He has more appearances as himself than as an actual actor. He has been on almost every sitcom. He has been, a pioneer of infamous horror movies and awesome sci-fi movies, and just has now regrown as a comedic icon and even as a unintended singer. So I guess circling around, Daniel, what was your introduction to him?
Well, my father is definitely a Trekkie, so it would have to have been Star Trek. But also, I watched the Twilight Zone marathon every New Year's, so I knew it was from the Twilight Zone.
There you go. And it's kind of we'll definitely mention his roles there. What's kind of crazy is everyone always talks about the episode with the gremlin on the plane, but he was in one earlier one, We're All the People.
The diner episode.
Yeah, that one's actually, I think, the best.
Yeah, I definitely, out of these roles I was listening here, and I'm sure everyone's going to recognize some of them, I definitely got to include both Twilight Zone episodes, because it's just like, he didn't even play the same kind of person in there. That was back when he was handsome and had, was fresh off Broadway and had been, believe it or not, even taught by his future Star Trek villain actor, Christopher Plummer. So it's just very interesting how this man has just constantly been against the grind, had both an ego and just kind of a likability, just to be that rare, just blurring the line between, hey, you say I can't do it, but I'm going to try it anyway. I'm going to do my damnedest. And more or less, I think I just admire him because he, despite being a character, he's just very shameless, and that's just kind of just part of the appeal of him. Just seeing him just be brave, just not, if he flunks, he doesn't care. If he succeeds, this just encourages him. That's just very what's awesome about him, is that he's redone himself so many times in his career, created all these other notable characters, and I think it just, there's no fear in him. He wants to go keep breaking the mold, keep daring to, he literally is the voyages of his career. He is just going to a new frontier each time. If you want him to direct a shitty movie, he will do that too. If you want him to perform with a bunch of other actors.
It's almost like he keeps reinventing himself.
Yeah. Tony,
he finds the ways to stay relevant.
Absolutely. Tony, what was your introduction to him?
Well, I think the first time I saw him on screen was in the original Star Trek, or possibly some TV show before that. May have been T.J. Hooker.
Oh, and see that there's another very stunning
That's
role
a
for
good
him
one.
too, because
So,
I mean,
because that
right
was
when
early
people-
'80s. Yeah.
Yep.
right?
And then I didn't see the original series Trek until reruns in the late '80s. So
Right? Because I
yeah.
mean, it wasn't a hit at the time, and it grew in the '70s. You know, just playing on antenna channels, just like Godzilla movies. And so then, you know, my mother became familiar with it on the U.S. Army base up in places like Libya and you know other places and in the Middle East, and you know, my grandparents were obsessed with it. My uncle and aunt both latched onto it. That's the only version of Trek that they know. You know, they don't follow all this other stuff, and so it's just interesting how that captured not only a particular era of TV, but was kind of often ranked up there with Twilight Zone and Mission Impossible, as you know, even Kung Fu, as renovating the adventure drama serial. You know, and he was in the right place at the right time, because prior to that, you know, he had some Canadian productions and plays and just been the guest star actor of the week, you know. And JJ, I guess you're in the same boat. You just kind of saw him on all these shows, and you're just like, oh yeah, that dude.
I was brought up. Let's see, I'm born in 1975, so that brings it around the time when Trek was starting to regain the popularity. So I'm about 3 years into it. So 79 was when the movie came out, but I knew about the show before that because ironically got me all the Mego dolls. So
Nice.
I knew, like my mom, again, I could say Captain Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Scotty, Uhura.
Damn
and
it,
then
Jim.
Yeah.
Uhura.
And then, like, you know, I as you guys said, you know, we got it here on WPIX in New York, which was Channel 11.
Oh,
and
wow.
then, yeah, and then it was Star Trek, and then the movie came out in '79, so I saw Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and then after that, there was kind of like a lull, and I saw Star Trek 2, which I think is the best Star Trek out of the original series. And then I watched T.J. Hooker, and then my father, God bless him, would tell me how he was on all these other shows before that. So I remember seeing Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, and I think it's The Nick of Time is the other episode. And then
I think so, yeah.
And then I remember seeing him on like Columbo, because I'd watch Columbo with him.
I was actually going to bring up that I, fortunately, to prep for this episode, was able to watch. They're always marathoning on Sundance and IFC now, and
Yeah.
I was able to watch both performances. One was in the '70s where he plays a TV show host, but I got to give the only one truly makes the list, and that's got to be the one when it got revived in the '90s, and he plays a murderous TV show host who the entire time you're not sure if he did or did not, and he really embezzles his flamboyant persona and takes it up a total notch, and it really is awesome seeing him finned against Peter Falk, who's another you know, charismatic, over the top actor. And so it's definitely an episode. If you got to watch any episode of Columbo, definitely watch his second one he did.
I saw, and then as that went on, you know, I started watching Star Trek more, like the movies more, you know, and I always thought he was great actor, you know. And
my dad talked about how he went to, like, I think the opening of Part 3, and he remembers just the audience going nuts during the finale when he does the whole "I have had enough of you," and just seeing that just kill on a Friday night. Everyone's buzzed, everyone's having fun, and just saying badass. Doesn't have to be just Arnold or Stallone anymore.
No, my favorite is Star Trek 2, when he's like, Khan thinks he's dead, right? He says, "Patch me through."
Yeah.
Are you up for a rematch, Khan?
Right.
He's like, "I'm laughing at the superior intellect." I'm like, that's like the biggest FU to the villain, you know.
Absolutely. And earlier on when he does that whole "I don't like to lose." That's just a perfect.
And he bites
It's
the
not
apple, like, yeah, let's go get him.
right. It just. I can see why everyone, whether they were a teen boy or an adult, just related to it. Is like he wants the he
No.
wants even more than just conquering a planet and screwing the alien baby. He also just wants to be the face of the Federation and just flat out win every space battle, regardless of whether he started the fight or he is going to get
With the
suspended by
music.
Starfleet. With the music, and that's the also kind of. I'm not trying to shit on all the other captains of the franchise, but it is always funny how his character is always the one. He finds the blur in the politics and in doing what he needs to do or he thinks he should do. And
Well-
it's just always so funny how the battles will often follow him or come to him, and he's always ready. He's
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Well, the
ahead.
part I love is Star Trek: The Motion Picture, when he's going to see the Enterprise for the first time, and Scotty says, a new crew, she needs a new shakedown. Says, and an untried captain says, 4 years at Starfleet set up Starfleet operations. It may be a little stale, but I wouldn't consider myself untried. And like, and he says, and Scotty looks at him and says, they gave her back to you. He goes, they gave her back to me, Scotty. Gave her back. I doubt it was that easy as Nagura. Yeah, right.
That's very true.
Oh, that was just like, my heart goes, oh, yes.
Ron and Barry started writing for him, and Nicholas Meyer always talked about how he, along with him, the rest of the cast started growing bigger egos. They had to have me time, and so he always did his best. Other filmmakers just become befuddled and be like, my way or the highway. Nicholas Meyer, he would compromise without giving up his vision. He'd be like, okay, we'll get to you just a fucking minute. Let's wrap up his close up, and then we'll do your close up to Kai and your close up Uhura and
I don't
Nimoy.
like it.
Oh my.
Right, and Nimoy, settle down. You're gonna finish the damn scene anyway and give a speech, so just shut up and let me do this.
He's a moron. I hate him.
Right, and of course, Kelly's just saying "damn it" at that point. Damn it! I've got to get my colonoscopy in the lunchtime. Damn it!
The one thing I love is like the later movies, like you could tell, like Takai's going, I'm going to get captain of the Excelsior. It's like,
right.
Right, yes.
We start off a bigger explosion than the next in spine.
Yes. When I yell shields, everybody jumps up. When I say frog, that bastard leaps.
Right, and it was always just so funny seeing them roast each other in interviews. And it's like, it doesn't matter. You're gonna see whatever piece of shit movie they do next.
And then the thing that gets me is like the last one they did after Generations. It was like Scotty and Chekhov are in it. Nimoy didn't feel it was up to him, and
right.
First Kelly, I think, was starting to get sick, or he wasn't.
They couldn't get him. He'd already done the Next Generation pilot, so yeah, they filmed more of Scotty, and they had to delete that scene, and so.
Yeah.
Nimoy, they offered to direct it. He fucking hated it. So,
Yeah.
At that point, they just had to compromise and just get some of the crew of the show and get the cinematographer of Chinatown.
Yeah. They could have asked me. I probably would have told him, don't open the chute till 5 feet above the ground. Then it would have been me.
The deleted scenes are actually worth watching because Kirk dies like 3 different ways. There's more alternate endings than any of the Star Wars movies combined. And it's also interesting just seeing how he just couldn't please Malcolm McDowell. And he's still, at the end of the day, he kind of doesn't give a shit anymore. He gets to brag. He's like, hey, I'm in Clockwork Orange and I got to kill Captain Kirk.
I got to kill Captain Kirk.
He does it like Bruce Dern's, like, hey, I'm the only guy who shot the Duke, John Wayne. And it's just like, okay, so you're liking being in. I do think it's an epic battle because, I mean, Picard, at that point, he's in Geordi data mode. He's not a fighter. He's only, good at commanding. And so he just has to be the, shield dismantling guy. He's
watching Kirk like, okay, he's fighting him. I'm gonna destroy the missile that's going to destroy the Nexus ribbon.
He has a tag team match. Yeah, he gets thrown out of the ring and then just goes back to dismantling the shield.
And then he
And
turns
and,
it-
e- and even working together, they still can barely take him down.
Right.
yeah.
And that's kind of what I like about that. This is, while there's some flaws in many villains in the movies, especially part 5 and part 10, what I like about F. Murray Abraham's Baul villain, and the Borgs, and Shinzon, or not Shinzon, McDowell's character, is
Yeah.
that they start becoming, yeah, sorry, my bad, that's his name. He start becoming very much Hans Gruber-esque, they're
Yeah.
just diabolical, got a
Solon,
disaster kind of plot.
Malcolm McDowell's character, Tolian Soren, is kind of like the mad scientist in Generations. And I kind of stopped watching the movies after Generations because I was like, I got to see First Contact.
Oh, well, yeah, that definitely killed
Yeah.
opening night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like-
all these Hellraiser type villains, and it was freaky, and you got all this aliens type action. It was. I'm sure Tony can tell us plenty of cosplay stories of everyone dressing up like the new Federation look.
the Borg Queen was like like a HR Giger.
Cenobite, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god. And then like at some point I love when Worf goes, assimilate this. And I was like, okay, you jumped the shark. You just
Absolutely.
fucking shark. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's when I stopped watching the whole Star Trek movies. And I was
Okay.
waiting,
Well, that's
So-
kind of the beauty of Trek. I mean, Trekkies are pretty good at just being very civilized, unlike, some of the Star Wars guys who's like, oh my God, guys, can we just agree to disagree? Instead,
Yeah, I'm one of the few Star Wars fans who will say to someone who's like, well, I didn't like Rise of Skywalker. I have a lot of guys that I know that didn't like the sequel trilogy because it wasn't what they wanted. And I'm like, okay, well, you did get Luke back, you got Leia back, you got Han back, you got Lando back, you got Chewie back, you got the robots back, the droids back. Don't worry about it. It's a new direction. You're going to be like, it was like this when the prequels came out, and everybody was going, "Oh, they freaking suck," and then you watch 10 years from now, they're going to be like, "Oh, these weren't that bad." But I'm a diehard Star Wars fan. I liked the sequels. But
it's like it exists for everyone to just start a trolling war, and it's just like that's not what this was meant for. You were gonna have issues.
Oh,
one
sure
way or
about
the other.
that?
I mean, I'm not 100% on any of the Star Wars movies, but at the end of the day, it is a spectacle. It's meant to be just fun, and not meant to be political. It's not meant to be anything really other than different world. But like Daniel's saying, is like it does seem after a while it's just leaves you scratching your head because there's just so many different directions it could have gone, and like JJ just pointed out, now it's just like it wasn't ever going to be 100%. So
no.
Well, Trek was, I think, it took me a while to just build on it, and I would never rewatch the movies as much, but I mean, it really did get me into philosophy. And it's like, damn, movies, sci-fi can be deep, like Blade Runner or Forbidden Planet.
Well, if you think about it, who directed Star Trek the Motion Picture? Robert
Wise. There you go. Best editor in the business.
And two of the greatest science fiction movies of all time.
Bro, the Day the Earth's still.
Bill and Andromeda Strain. So
that too, yeah. So there you go.
So he was like, he was already in the, he was in the business. He had already worked on, a bunch of other movies before that. And, unfortunately he had to do the chop job on the Magnificent Ambersons, which I think he was always kind of, feeling guilty about. Because they did it behind Orson Welles' back. But, the great thing about Trek when Shatner was in that captain's seat was that he would do these things where you'd be like, okay, he has to save himself, but he has to put himself above the crew, above himself. And he's got Spock and McCoy who represent two sides of him. So that's what made that character so good. It's the feeding of him.
Right, and the cast members were not hot with each other. We had Nimoy and Shatner kind of had a Henry Fonda and Jimmy Stewart thing where they one time just got all physical and duked it out, and Nimoy was like, "You're a son of a bitch, but kind of like you. and,
Yeah.
and Shatner was like, well, as long as you give me my close up, I'm okay with you, you know, shit like that. And it was just kind of wild how that really does. You do see through some of the animosity in like season 1, you know, and Takai was off filming the Green Berets with John Wayne,
Yeah.
and her and Scotty didn't get much screen time as much. They would only come in as like the people who solved the solution, like Captain, her is like, Captain, I found the space laser that's causing the thing, and Scotty's like, I'll shut it off,
I'll go downstairs and shut it off, Captain, but I don't think I'd be able to get the whole thing going, And and then they brought Chekhov in because they wanted to get the team appeal, and that's why if you look at Walter Koenig through the first season, he's wearing a wig like Davy Jones.
And that's just it, and that's pretty much its also greatest asset. They really do go to Shakespearean kind of Oedipus type levels, even Moby Dick, just Captain goes down with his ship, and it's always kind of that is like, okay, and that's what I loved about the movies is they would always do the self-destruct. They would fret in it, and it's like, I wish they had done stuff like that in Star Wars, because everyone was always just fine, blowing shit up and going, Michael Bay style, going to the next thing. And it's like, here is like, they had to just think it out thoroughly. And they had a lot of filmmakers who had worked in, suspenseful type stuff. Like Matthew F. Leonardi is a perfect example. He was studying how they shot Deep Space Nine in order to shoot the movies, First Contact, Insurrection, and Myers, the same thing. He had a lot of the same people who had done a lot of, hit mystery and adventure films, and so they were able to make great use of lighting and shaking the camera before it was infamous, just to give you that illusion is like, okay, someone actually did fall out of their seat, and it wasn't just a cheap trick.
No budget like low budget.
And that's what I mean. Tony and I are both big, huge Babylon 5 fans, and so I really thought it was brilliant how they used a lot of the same tricks, Roger Corman kind of film school, as well as bringing Conan on over there to where it became let's get a Star Trek actor to guest spot.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah, I thought Doctor Who just entered your house.
Yeah.
The TARDIS just generated into your house. No, the thing I loved about Star Trek was with Star Trek, and I'm gonna just say the last thing here that I want to say is that when Saturday Night Live got a hold of it, that first and they did Voyage of the Starship Enterprise, Belushi nailed Shatner down.
Oh yeah,
because he did the whole thing. He says, like, fact. I mean, fact. And he's got bones. What does this mean? It's like he what supposedly happened was he got the tapes of Star Trek and watched Shatner to get his
mannerisms
down. Where
absolutely,
Chase, you watch it, it's just playing Spock, very cool, calm, and But
he's being Chevy Chase and then adding his commas in between.
But Belushi feels it. I mean, he just stole it out from Chase. And then the part I love is when he goes, "Live long and prosper, promise," which was the joke for he's like, Shatner, you got an insurance company? Because Shatner at that time was doing Promise margarine.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And he was, in so many other miniseries at that time, doing the transition of his career, and so it was great that they brought him on to SNL, and that made everyone accept him as a comedic icon. He's like, okay, he can make fun of himself, but he's also he's in every TV special of the week, so now it means something more. And I think what was also pretty cool was he ended up from that point on just being in the most unusual kind of movies from that point. So I'm going to mention a few other roles and see who's seen any of these. Has anyone seen the Hystericals related name only sequel, American Psycho 2?
No.
I quote this movie commonly just because his final, he's in the most memorable death scene in the whole thing. Stop calling me Bobby. He's being stalked.
Well, one of my favorite YouTubers, Dr. Wolfula. That was one of his early reviews. American
I remember that
Psycho 2.
review.
And
remember.
just the one thing he says at the beginning of it, you're probably asking, could a Mila Kunis movie possibly be that bad? Of course it can. Why would you ask me that?
Right. Why? Especially when they couldn't even get Christian Bale to reprise, they just have someone else playing Patrick Bateman. I'm going to mention another one here. Alexander the Great. Now, this is a 60s TV pilot he and Adam West did because they didn't know how longer Star Trek and Batman, respectively, were going to be. And
Oh, God,
Adam
those
West,
two together.
Or that?
well, and it's
that.
definitely a appropriate parallel because Adam West was definitely another one who, as even Kevin Murphy of Mystery Science said it best, is like he can make anything great and he can make anything funny. He's got the voice. And much like you say, much like how John Belushi's studying people who's going to make fun of, and Kevin Pollak and Seth MacFarlane worked Shatner into their act, Adam West was just one of those. He just always show up, and you're like, that's Adam West. It just the movie becomes something different because now that he's appeared out of nowhere, and
Yeah, because the Alexander the Great came out in '63.
It really is a TV pilot we're seeing.
Yeah.
Because it's a standalone kind of thing, and it literally looks like an awesome live theater kind of spectacle, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Shatner's very confident in the horse riding scene because he was an actual horse rider in real life. He still owns a ranch. You can YouTube this one easy. It's actually kind of interesting just seeing how spectacles were done back in the day on TV to fill time.
Yeah, that was the thing back then. You'd have like a TV show with like a big cast of people, and it was either a one-off thing. Like I get that feeling with when we were talking about Mystery Science Theater the other night, San Francisco National Airport. That's the pilot we're watching because when it went to series, Lloyd Bridges came in to replace
Clu Gallagher, yeah,
and Clu Gallagher was in it. But that Alexander the Great, I do kind of remember seeing on YouTube.
And I think it did later air on like other movies after filming get picked up. It was still in the TV vaults, and so they're like, okay, let's just show this on some of the free to air channels. No one cares, but we got to fill time.
And I think he has like the page boy haircut in this.
Definitely around the start of his toupee years, and it's Toga. There's the Belushi connection. Toga. Has anyone seen Land of the Free?
That one I've not.
So no. This is so during the 90s and early 2000s, there was, much like New Image and Millennium Films was becoming a thing, there was another one called PM Entertainment Group, and they were just notable for just always having outrageous car chases and a bunch of B-movie actors like Jack Scalia, a bunch of martial artists like Don the Dragon Wilson.
Oh my God.
Their movies would air on Monster Vision, TNT, as well as premiere on HBO with the likes of Michael Madsen and G. Everhard. So it was just they were always just fun spectacles. And in this was one of many that had Jeff Speakman, right off, The Perfect Weapon. And
make the joke about him, the Kung Fu Jew.
Jeff
Speakman. It was Kevin Pollak. I think Kevin Pollak. No, Richard Jenny. Richard Jenny would make the joke about him. Jeff Speakman,
wow.
Kung Fu Jew. I mean, I don't mean any anti-Semitic, but it was just he'd be like, yeah,
well, it's appropriate since he's fighting Shatner here as an evil politician. It's a very fun, outrageous movie. At one point, they even rip off Die Hard by having Speakman's character fall off the side of a building using a fire escape. And Shatner gets the best lines at the end when, after Speakman's dispatched his henchmen who are firing at him from a helicopter on his private ranch, and he tries to drown Shatner in quicksand after killing his family. And Shatner's like, "What are you doing?" It's just outrageous. You gotta see it. It's probably on YouTube or Tubi. Oh, I do love me some B movies because they were just made so coherently compared to today's standards, where you're just like, what the fuck? Okay, well, skipping for this.
I'm gonna have to go with Airplane 2, the sequel.
Yes.
because that
Oh
is
yeah.
the ultimate off, and the lines. My best friend and me would quote the lines, and when it gets to Buck Murdoch, I have to just clear my head, because it's, it wasn't that good of a sequel as the original, okay? But when it gets to Shatner's part, when it's
it totally makes it go to a whole different stage.
Yeah.
I think on the director's episode with those, Zucker brothers and everything, I think they even described how they got all these serious actors to, including Leslie Nielsen, everybody to agree to it, because by just making them trust them is like, that's why it's funny. You're saying all this stupid shit, doing what you do so well, and that's why it's a great parody, And it's just amazing how they got everyone to just say, just go with it. Have fun.
The thing I love is when he's looking through the periscope and he's like, he's the head honcho now. Numero uno.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you see the Enterprise come flying by, and he's like, what the hell was that? And he's like, upscope. And he goes, hey, have you got Stryker's record? Yeah, it's terrible. Okay. It was just such an over-the-top role for him.
Yeah, he was just fresh off doing Star Trek 2, and so it's just that along with SNL, that's him definitely just one of many times where he's like, yeah, I'll gladly mock Star Trek again while also paying tribute. And it's just for this sequel in particular, they're already making fun of other airport sequels and fake matinee screenings in Godzilla, so it was just very refreshing to see them again just go even deeper in the parodyville.
And the thing I loved was that when they did it, he's like, oh, well, we can't get these lights, we'll make sure, we have, get them, it's all this beeping and flashing and I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I mean, it was just so good to see him send himself up,
Right.
And
for sure,
that move, it was like, okay, they got Nielsen, Bridges, and Stack the first time, and Graves, and then they got Graves, Bridges, and then they got Shatner. So it was like,
wasn't George Kennedy in there somewhere, if I'm remembering right?
No, George Kennedy wasn't in those. It was
okay.
That one was Chuck Connors.
That's who I'm thinking.
When they say, somebody get me the Sarge.
Yes.
He doesn't, and he had more. And Rip Torn is in that too.
That's right. Yeah.
And Rip
Of course.
Torn played not only the guy who was the head of the safety council, but he played Reagan. There's parts where they cut out where he's Reagan, like you see him holding a black hand, and it pulls back. It's just a black wooden hand with a suit sleeve on it. To show, to make fun of Reagan, being like racist or anything like that. And then
what?
Yeah, there's so many cut scenes that they showed. And there's that one scene where he's like holding a hand, it's like, thank you, Mr. President. It's just like a wooden hand colored black with
God.
sleeve. It was just so funny to watch. And that's what was great about that movie. But get back on Shatner though, it was just like, he's there, he's got the commander's hat on, and he's got like the suit on and everything like that. And he's like, Captain, what do you make of this? Well, it's a dog. That's a dog. That's a hat. That's a coat. That's a bunny rabbit. Okay, but he does. He's keeping in beat with the movie, which is great.
Well, and he was already straight off a bunch of other Italian productions where he, would be playing part cyborg or badass cop. And
yeah.
In many ways, what's his name? Who played Hunter? Kind of got a lot of the roles that were left over for him in a way. Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Fred Dryer.
Yeah, Fred Dryer. Awesome dude. I lit up when I saw him in Bumblebee 2 years ago. Anywho, Tony, do you have a role that you want to mention for the Shat that just kind of gelled with you? Just really said, wow, this dude can do no wrong.
Well, geez. I can't really think of anything that hasn't already been
have you by any
mentioned,
chance seen Loaded Weapon 1?
Oh yeah. I haven't seen those, but it's been like a couple of decades since I've seen them.
He made the movie because, you already got Emilio Estevez and Sam Jackson making fun of, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, and 48 Hours type movies. Right? Even Bruce Willis even shows up playing basically a poor man's John McClane, saying they blew up my house, and it was definitely one of the more underrated National Lampoon movies that it flopped when it came out, but they ate it up on home video, saying this is really fucking funny. And Shatner just really took it to the bank by playing a guy who literally drowns his own fish and eats it. How do you drown a fish? And just really just playing ball without trying to steal the movie from everybody, and just being like, "Oh, but you didn't think that you'd take out all my men, sir. No one else is coming. Oh, but I'm pretty sure I got a bunch of other henchmen coming around the corner to shoot you up." Just shit like that. It just really just plays it up. He gets a great death, just falling from a balcony and then still half alive or some shit like that. It just they don't make spoofs like this anymore. As far as I'm concerned, Black Dynamite and maybe one other, and that was it. And
Yeah, the parody movie died.
I miss those days because
Basically,
it just got very dire after a while, or it would be too much, or
The
just to the point where,
scary movie killed it badly.
well, and that's just the sad part is I really liked what the Zuckers did with that afterwards, having Nielsen and Anthony Anderson and some of those other guys and some of those, and then after that it just got too much. It's just like, okay, SNL's kind of dying up, Mad TV's not as funny, and it's just like, can we just, I'm so glad that we had stuff like YouTube and Funny or Die, and they were kind of relaunching it that way. It's like, that's how you got to just do it. And I mean, I'm so excited that they finally were able to fund Kung Fury and make a feature film version of that's coming out soon, because that was very fun, just making fun of that 80s synthesizer music. And they're going to have Arnold Schwarzenegger play a villain in it. I'm like, that's perfect.
Oh,
wait,
wow.
Fury coming out?
I'm not sure, but it got, but twice in a row, it got successfully crowdfunded. People, it gelled because it was just made with love. It didn't overstay its welcome. And that's just what was so funny is everyone was like, I want more. I'm like, if you do any more, it's going to be too long and piss people off. It's just, you got to have it be just 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And that's all you need. It's a
Yeah,
short film.
that was a half hour of just pure, outrageous, it's hilarious stuff.
Yeah, every kill means something. Is like, I miss those days where you remember the henchmen not only but by what outrageous thing they do, but how they're disposed of and what outrageous name or character trait they got. And it's just it's lost now. Now it's just all they want to do now. It works to some extent, and then it flops in other ways. Now they got to just get the 50-something actor, like Denzel or Liam Neeson taking out the trash, and it's just like that works to some extent, but then after a while that gets pretty repetitive. We gotta have something cool to the villain. You gotta have that's what I like about the Olympus Has Fallen movies, because they kind of embrace the over the top 80s fun.
Well, Commando was that movie that I loved watching because it was
Yes.
you watch and you were like, okay, how's he gonna kill this guy? He kills the one guy on the plane. He turns to Stu and says, "Don't bother my friend. He's dead tired."
Right. It's
He's
just
back.
such dry delivery, and Mark L. Lester, after a while, it seemed like he dried up. His last great movie, as we talked yesterday, was probably Extreme Justice.
Yeah. And then when he picks up the one guy, and he says, "Remember, Sally, when I said I'd kill you last?"
I lied.
I lied. And then
that's just it, yeah.
the ending when he kills Bennett and
Load up
puts
some
it
steam.
through him. Holy shit. My father and me were in the movie theater and we both went like in unison. Holy shit. Like,
Right.
come on, Bennett, take the knife.
All that was missing. That's pretty much my biggest regret. Shatner and Arnold never worked together. They should have totally.
So that would have been quite a pairing.
That, Eddie Murphy, all of them should work together.
They should make the Expendables make it the Unexpendables.
There you go. The TV-ables. I don't know. The espionageables. I don't know. Anyway, has anyone seen The Devil's Reign?
Yes.
I am convinced that this is an unofficial sequel to Monos, but
Yeah.
it is a fairly watchable, reasonable time killer. And this used to be showed on Monster Vision for Joe Bob Briggs. And it has many people earlier or later in their career, like John Travolta, Ernest Borgnine, and even the sheriff from Green Acres is here. And Shatner's really got a cool dilemma here because he also probably the highest body count of his whole career. He's gets converted by this demonic cult and then realizing, oh shit, they're destroying us in the town. I gotta set fire to the church we're in. He sacrifices himself just like Kirk, and so that's what's pretty awesome.
And what I love about that is when you watch it, it's Ida Lupino, Tom Skerritt, Eddie.
That's right, he's in it. Yeah.
Yeah, Eddie Albert. Who else was in it? Ernie Borgnine played chorus.
Apparently, this is what got Travolta. The rumor is this is where he met the Scientologist and they converted him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And the thing I loved about
Johnny
that,
Boy.
the thing I loved about that movie was that when you were watching it, as you're watching it, you're thinking to yourself in the back of your head, okay, can this go any further? Like, story-wise,
Right? Can it get any more shocking? We got 40 minutes left. What could possibly happen now that everyone's been
little brother?
brainwashed?
The little brother's there, Tom Skerritt's character, and it's like
he's still totally in alien mode in a way.
He hadn't made Alien yet. I think he was.
Yeah. That's what's ironic, but he's still basically in alien mode. That's what I love about it.
Dallas mode. He's like, yeah.
Oh, that's true.
You gotta save my brother. Okay.
Right.
But the thing I loved about that was the mask that he had, Shatner had, I think became the mask that they used for
Michael Myers. Yeah, that's right.
Halloween. Yeah.
Because that became a merchandise item, and it's so funny.
But if you watch it, I have the preview somewhere on my Facebook page.
Do you?
And it's like it's part of a B movie, like a B movie trailer thing. They're like, you haven't seen anything till you've seen The Devil's Reign, and they say made with the cooperation of Anton LaVey of the Church of Satan.
That's what's it too. Yeah, actual people of the Church of Satan were members of this, and that's what's just so shocking. Is this is like seemingly normal people was like somehow they would convince them it was a church group, like a Christian group, and they would somehow just change the name and just say, I don't know how they converted them, but God, that is just a scary part of history. Oh, I don't want to get too political, but
that movie got me freaked out a little bit.
It does a good job of keeping you in suspense.
Yeah.
Yes, it has moments that haven't dated well. That's just what happens with some 70s thrillers, but it is pretty cool how the music isn't over the top and yet it still causes a sense of dread very naturally. It plays it safe without feeling, just shoddy. At the same time, it is very low budget, and yet it makes good use of every shocking moment without, relying on gore or even just, slasher music.
And
it's a reasonable movie. It's a 3 out of 5.
The only gory part is
is when they're melting. Yeah, so there you go. I'm melting.
I watched that one night, and all of a sudden I just got into MST3K mode when they're on. I'm like, we're melting.
I'm surprised they haven't. Riff Tracks or them haven't taken it on yet, but this is a perfect segue. Riff Tracks did take on Kingdom of the Spiders.
Oh
yeah.
I do remember that from.
That's another one. You can't really take it seriously, but it's not harmful. But at the same time, it is definitely worth seeing. I mean, it was good enough to be included in Shatner's Comedy Central roast when they did the, B-roll at the beginning showing moments of their career. It's just so funny to seeing how these spiders, the most harmless ones that they picked, clearly, for safety reasons, are just over him, and he's just. We always think he's stilted in how he delivers his lines. He's taking his sweet time, just shaking his hands, acting like they're overpowering him.
And the ending, he looks out, he's like, you see him go, like he falls. I love when he falls in the cellar. He's like, ah, and I'm like, they're not coming after you.
Right, and then, but this is before he gets the torch out. That's on the poster and everything. And that now that this transitions to probably his best horror fantasy moment outside of all these movies, in my opinion, definitely has to be Incubus.
Oh God,
Not to be confused with the music band of
No.
the same name, but he did speak an actual ancient language. He's practically speaking Latin, you know? And
Esperanto.
yeah,
Esperanto. It was a new language that they were going to create.
yeah,
that-
he's just he disappears into it. You forget about even Shatner the actor, Shatner the overactor. You just like, how the fuck did he do that? That's some dedication right there.
And they re-released it in the 90s with a cleaned up print because
Yes, and he went on the Daily Show to promote it and everything, and
Yeah.
they were like, seriously, how the fuck did you do this? And he's like, I trusted. I just pretend it was acting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I remember, one of my teachers was talking about Esperanto, because I was a communications major, and he said, yeah, they made a movie with William Shatner in it called Incubus, and I was like, oh, okay.
No way.
I'm just thinking in the back of my film. This is like Stallone doing Party at Buffy and Studs. It's like the movie he may want to forget doing.
Right, but the irony is he had no shame about it. But yeah, it was just one of those. It's like the distributor, somebody, they didn't know what to do with it, and it just got lost in some kind of shuffle and rediscovered years later.
Yeah, and
it's actually been given multiple Blu-ray things. I think it's actually. Don't quote me on this. I don't know shit, but I think it might be part of the Criterion Channel, possibly. Oh, okay, so perfect.
I remember they were doing the whole re-release of stuff, and I think I read it in Playboy, of all places.
They have such interesting articles.
Yeah,
they have a lot of movie buffs in those, and it's just so funny. I would see their reviews featured on movies like Screamers and Congo, of all places. I'm like, wow, they're reviewing movies, and the studios are using it for the home video release. But yeah, no, that's a good segue, because it's like, this is also kind of an easier to get into kind of cult movie. There's always the ones where it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense unless I'm hammered, or I have a bunch of friends who have seen it more times than I, to get in the zone, in the mode. And this one, it really does kind of grasp you easily, because it's just very atmospheric.
Yeah, it's dark. It's psychological too.
Yeah, and I mean, he had already been in a movie that was kind of a loose Rashomon remake with Paul Newman, of all people, and so it was kind of a copy and paste for him at that point. And
yeah,
I can't recommend that other movie, but this one, totally, just seek it out and watch it on YouTube. It's definitely on there somewhere, and
it is.
And just be like, wow, how did people were creative in the 60s, man.
You got to think about it too. It was the whole new
wave and distributors and sexuality and last picture show type indies coming out. Yeah.
Let's make a movie about a language that no one will ever speak, because it was like, what they were doing with Esperanto? They were doing the metric system with words. That's what I was thinking of.
Very true, very true. And more or less, I gotta also just hand it to him for just trusting each other. Just saying, no one's done it. They kind of really do handle it kind of like Shatner basically is handling it like he does both of his Twilight Zone appearances, and you can make fun of his recent stuff now and him making fun of himself, but I mean, this one is like, he definitely could have, had it not been a long lost film, he could have definitely used it on his demo reel back in the day. Here's what I can do. So I'm going to wrap up his film roles before we go on to some of his TV appearances, and I'll quiz you on those. I got to recommend the Andersonville Trial.
Oh.
Yeah, much like 12 Angry Men, it just has, this is before everyone's trying to be like Mannix or Law & Order or Dragnet, and this one is really just riveting, just because, it's a real life thing. Everyone's playing a key person in the trial, and, much like Frost Nixon and other stuff, or they're not being, literal with every moment of the transcript. They have some leeway, and, it's pretty much A Few Good Men of its day, just questioning what makes a soldier. When do you defy an order? When do you take the order, even if it's wrong or right? Or questionable. Yeah, and Shatner gets to be one of the prosecutors who kind of asks some of the more open-minded questions, like, well, were you aware of what their personal agenda was versus what your agenda was? And so it's like, okay, this is getting pretty deep. That's pretty cool that they gave him one of the key closing statements.
I'll give you 2 for the price of 1. Okay, Big
Oh
Bad,
boy.
the original Big Bad Mama from '74, where he
Let's get that in the honorable mentions.
Thought that was coming up.
okay, where he plays Cavalier gangster William J. Baxter, and he gets to have a love scene with Angie.
Oh God, he got
Lucky
laid on that
son of a
one.
bitch.
I'm taking it, that, and the second role you're probably mentioning, I'm taking it, is Impulse.
Yes, where he plays. Oh my God.
So basically,
Oh my
Shatner
God.
becomes a spree serial killer after he witnesses a guy assaulting his mom. It should be traumatic and everything, and you just can't take it seriously. He gets a moment where he gets to fight the guy who played Oddjob in Goldfinger.
God.
Oh my God, what the hell was going on in this movie?
Can I give you a
What
little
wasn't?
Right?
a little bit of something that I found out? My father's friend, Seuss Kawamoto, when my father worked at Sears, my father's friend Seuss was in an internment camp in World War II.
Oh wow.
My
Oh,
father
shit.
had me when he was older in life. So he says to me one day, he says, Jay, you know who Seuss knew? And I'm like, who? He says, Oddjob, Harold Sakata. I'm like,
Not the Kai who was there, but Oddjob. Wow. Okay.
Oddjob. And Oddjob actually won 2 Olympic medals for the United States in weightlifting. That's what he was.
That's right. He pretty much was kind of like the Andre the Giant of his day, where he's like, he should have had a bigger, action wrestler filmography, and he did,
Yeah.
got in the way, unfortunately. It's like, but we can appreciate the moments he has in this one. It won't go down as the best, but it is hysterical. You gotta
But
see it.
Impulse is just him flying off the handle.
It's like they're basically. I'm convinced there really wasn't much of a script, so Shatner just wanted to just get out of there, and he's like, well, he is a crazy spree killer, so I'm gonna tackle it that way.
He kills rich old women, right? And that, yeah, he does.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mention another one I saw a day ago. Devil's Revenge. Here he gets to act off of other fellow track actors, Jerry Ryan, that's right, Soda 9, and Jason Brooks from 09's track. And at one point he's telling Brooks, "What are you, pussy? I can kill a demon for you." It's just a totally campy, stupid ass demon slaying movie. He's not in it enough, but it's hardly a 2 out of 10 star rating like it's given. It's just outrageous. It really is.
Well, we're skipping a movie that he did that got a lot of good press.
That's all right. This is honorable mention, so we're just
honorable mention. Yeah, honorable mention.
or dishonorable, depending on who you call him. Just mention him. Kidnapping of the President is another one, because much like Devil's Revenge, he just lets out an unexpected F-bomb.
I remember that coming out.
I'm gonna fucking kill you, or some shit like that. I was like, what?
Yeah.
That's the shit just cursed.
Captain Kirk was supposed to curse.
And I forget who played the president in that one. It was a famous actor.
I'll take a look. I can see
Paul Holbrook, I think.
Al Holbrook,
who just left us, unfortunately. But yeah, it's Leonard Maltin even gave it a favorable review. It was one of those. It was by Crest Pictures or something. Yeah,
Crown.
They were a thing. Crown International. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, they were the new rivaling New World Pictures in the drive-in scene, and that was definitely one of their better rated ones.
It was like AIP when AIP was big.
Mm-hmm. And this is as close as Shatner gets to an Air Force One type, Die Hard Delta Force type movie. It's fun.
I'm looking at the cast.
Yeah, they were fresh off all the 70s disaster movies, and Shatner, like you said, had done plenty of goofy made-for-TV movies where he's just part of an all-star cast or co-produced by Irwin Allen. But this one is hardly lowbrow, surprisingly.
Ava Gardner was in it.
Oh, yeah.
Van Johnson.
In here. Van Johnson, yes.
Van Johnson, who my father says to this day was playing the other side of the fence. My father would always say that about certain people.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
And it was just a badass soldier actor. You know, one of those combat type guys you see on TV.
The best one he ever did. I love the movie. He did Combat in what 40 or 50 when he was that one or Battlefield, the one with Richard Widmark's in it.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
I think I've seen that one years ago.
Battlefront. Yeah, that
Yes.
one I love. And then Maury Chaykin is in it. If you remember,
Yes.
he was the really heavy set guy. He was in he played Nero Wolfe on the TV show.
That was a great, shortly lived, Timothy Hutton noir show they did on A&E back when they were a thing before they became reality channel. But yeah, Maury Chaykin, Home Alone. He had a brief featured recurring guests on Stargate SG-1. But to close out some of the other honorable mentions for the Shat, I gotta mention his moment where he plays a comedic version of himself, teaching everyone how Eddie Murphy and Robert De Niro on a fictional cop show how to do the T.J. Hooker trunk flip in 2002's Showtime.
Oh God!
The movie is part spoof, part serious, and the less said about the serious shit, the better. It is cool seeing Robert De Niro shoot up the place and Eddie still getting some funny moments, but you got to see Shatner's moments where Renee Rousseau is like directing the scene or casting director, and she's like, "Hey, can you teach him how to do what you did on T.J. Hooker?" It's clearly a stunt double, and Shatner would later do the exact same thing when he did the show "Shit My Dad Says."
Oh,
it's just so funny just seeing him. Like he's like, "Yeah, I did all my own stunts." He's like, "No, you didn't."
Shit My Dad Says was based on my father, not that other guy's father, because my father would say stuff so off the wall.
Well, that's just it. Just people who are basically boomers. It's like, whoa, dude.
Well,
not trying to be politically correct, but if you say that, I'm gonna have to explain some shit. So just can you shut up until we get home, please?
That's what I said about Van Johnson before, because my father said, my father would tell me, he'd be like, Van Johnson's gay. I'm like, how can you tell? He says he's wearing red socks. And I'd be like, what? He's like, hey, where's red socks? Don't you know that? Like, oh, that you knew of that?
Oh.
No, Jay, he wears red socks.
Oh, so he was very much like Robert Mitchum or Clark Gable. It's like you never would have thought.
Well, he would. My father. I don't mean to diverge off the topic here, but my father was old school Hollywood, so he would hear things from people, like about certain stars. Like my father told me that he worked as a stage manager during Hamlet, right? So my father
I'm sure he
said
heard stories about Jack Palance and other
no,
people.
no. My father met Morris Evans, Dr. Zayek.
Oh God!
And my father said he had a valet with him, and the valet took a liking to my father.
Was he one of the many people who met Charles Bronson?
Oh no.
It seemed like everybody has met Charles Bronson in parts of like Arkansas, Texas, California, and always been like nicest dude ever.
Hey, you want to do the pie with me?
I'm visiting family here at the hospital. How are you, good sir?
Hey, I'm here to give you some flowers because your wife couldn't make it.
I'm going to kill Libet. All right, no more senseless jokes.
Guys,
I'm gonna mention one more final honorable mention, and this was of the films before we go on to TV. I gotta give my hat off to Shatner's role in Miss Congeniality, not just the first one, but part 2.
Yeah.
Out of all stupid, once again, another parody sequel he's in, he actually gets way more screen time, gets to make fun of all his, moments where he's in danger and all his other, well-known characters like T.J. Hooker and Kirk. The movie 1 was interesting, just seeing Candice Bergen play an evil bitch and just see Benjamin Bratt kind of make fun of his Law and Order role. But this one was just at least just watchable. It was cool seeing Sandra once again just playing action star, something she's kind of abandoned in favor of all these stupid movies she does now. But Shatner really just stills every scene he's in and gets to escape from like a water trap. So I'm gonna move on to TV. Obviously, we can talk all day about Kirk. Let's talk a little bit about T.J. Hooker since we didn't talk about it enough. This really was just, it was by the future creator of Walker, Texas Ranger. I've seen every episode, and it really is just, it runs out of steam in like the final season, but it really just is just awesome just seeing Shatner so dedicated to this fun role, just beating everyone senseless with a nightstick, saying, "No, you will not rape, you will not kill." It's pretty much his death wish. It's just wild.
The thing I loved about Jay Hooker was that, if anybody remembers, he had the one episode where Leonard Nimoy showed up.
Yes, and it's impossible to
Nerdgasm.
You can't not make Spock jokes, especially because in this episode, Spock's basically playing a vigilante cop.
It's like playing a vigilante cop. And Hooker's like looking at him, going, "You're going against the rules." And like Nimoy's going like, "No, I can do what I want when I want to." And I'm like,
"He killed my father," shit like that.
It's like, oh my god.
He even kills a guy earlier at a crime scene before going after like the rest of the petty drug dealers. It's just a lot of fun. Oh god. Now I gotta go with the one that again, brilliant. Both Twilight Zone episodes, Hooker, and all the other sitcoms where he references himself. But this would not be a Shatner list if we did not mention Denny Crane.
Denny Crane.
Yes. Yes, of course he was the insurance, and commercials and all such, and now he does all the hospice ads. But no, we got to talk about Boston Legal. Originally in the final season of Practice, and everyone is, both he and James Spader got Emmys for their work, and then they realized, fuck, the show already was falling apart, and we unexpectedly won all these awards. Spader's playing a disillusioned, liberal who used to believe in stuff. Now he's being a hypocrite. Shatner's kind of, right-winger, and he's interesting just seeing these two political sides just best of friends, sharing a beer together, just, always trying to get laid, and it just, he really is a badass attorney in this because half the time he zones out. He doesn't even know what the fuck they're fighting anymore, and he just finds a way to make the other side to look like pussies. And that was just so funny. It's like, what? What was the question again? No, he did not have sex with your wife. I did.
The great thing about that character was that he was so over the top.
And he would always find ways to even blackmail the judge. He's like, well, if you don't rule in my favor, I'm going to sleep with your wife. And she still has my number. And he does that like 5 different times. Does the judge have a wife I can sleep with? Is she hot? And it's just awesome. It's like, oh my god.
It was like it's like the blinders came off, and Denny Crane is the character we all want to be in life. We don't want to be, Denny Crane is the guy who's like, you know what? F you, I can do what I want when I want to do it.
And it really is brilliant writing. David E. Kelley, some of his shows went downhill after a while, like LA Law and such, but this and Chicago Hope are just my all-time favorite shows of all time because, Chicago Hope was brilliant at that. It's coming off the heels of St. Elsewhere and ER, and it's anything but like those shows. It's got the template, but you're not seeing anyone, get high in the hospital or, drill off someone's arm using a chainsaw. It's just such dark comedy. He was brilliant at it, and Kelly knew how to orchestrate law without feeling like a typical law show because he had previously been an attorney and really good at winning cases. So there you go. He saw the dark side of mankind and knew how to paint portraits that way. And so with that, and he even wrote a good chunk of the episodes, so he always kept the narrative common. He even says in the special features of Boston Legal, I don't come up with a backstory. I come up with an outline and the characteristics, and the rest of the shit does the talking.
Well, the thing I loved about Boston Legal, there's one episode I love. A guy comes into the office with a gun.
Yes!
Great.
Everyone is like anti-gun, and Denny Crane is total pro-gun, and he just like flat out just shoots up the dude.
He's like, he doesn't even kill him. He like wounds him, I think.
Yeah, he wounds him, and it's just so ironic because they're having a company party, and it's just it is a hoot. It really is,
Crane is your uncle who will say whatever he wants to say, and then he'll come in the house and be like, "All right, who wants to shoot my shotgun off? I just got it out of the back." But when he does that scene where he shoots the guy, he's like the guy's going, I'm giving you the man. You just see him like loading the gun, getting it ready, and then he says, "Okay, the count of 3, open the door. 1, 2, 3, open the door." Okay, and he does that scene so meticulous. And I didn't realize that Shat is actually a really good skeet shooter.
Yeah. He had his share of just real life sports, and I mean, he was even in a paintball special for History Channel. So it's just
Man of all trades.
Yes.
a man of all trades, but it's just even funnier because they give them brilliant, subplots, arcs each season. Like Spader's, Alan Shore comes close to losing his license and regaining trust with people he actually loves, once he gets his cynical side out of bounds. And with Shatner's Crane, it's just brilliant because it's like, first he wants to really just show, hey, Candace Bergen, Candy, I love you. And, by season 5, he hasn't given up on her, but he's just stopped trying to gain her love. And his main arc there is, I got to find out how to get a boner again. It's just an outrageous storyline. And this is before they decide to get married. They're not homo to each other, but it's just so funny how there's like, hey, we want to inherit each other's riches and everything, and share the rent and everything. It's just hysterical. And the show, on brief occasions, it is basically the Deadpool of its age, because they would have the break the fourth wall, and they especially do it in that final season. They do the whole, but this is our final year on the air, so what you gonna do? At one point, he explicitly says that. Oh God!
Like, it was kind of like, all right, I know it's the last season. Who gives a shit? Let's just go for it.
And it actually did. Once again, it gained the show more awards. And now
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All? Sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time. Tangents galore.
Yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We may talk about video games,
Music.
Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Yes.
I am the master storyteller of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers, the Google Play, Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ. We gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair say all that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Don't run the listeners away, PJ.
I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we're going to end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
all popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was going
How
to be a
did you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our queue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. With a one-last plot holes of gratuitous movies. It's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
Welcome to Who Was She podcast. I am your host, Tara Jabari. After a decade working in documentaries, marketing, and all things digital media, I found that podcasting is a strong medium to share stories. After years of producing for others, I decided to start my own biographical podcast. Who Was She will focus on the life of a woman throughout Baha'i history. The first season is about Lydia Zemenoff. Lydia's story explores the subjects of the power of language and faith. Her father invented the universal language Esperanto, and she came from a Jewish family and became a Baha'i. She grew up during World War I and was killed during World War II in a concentration camp, despite heroic efforts to save her life. How can one person's life intersect with so many others, connect across borders, and inspire a biography which inspired this podcast? Over the next few weeks, I will share her story with you and the lives that were most affected by her and those who affected her life as well. They include her father, Ludwig Semenoff, her spiritual mother, American journalist Martha Root, and the Baha'i German soldier Fritz Mako, who worked for the resistance undercover while having to serve the Nazi Party. I want to thank the author Wendy Heller and George Ronald Publishing for their blessing to let me use Heller's biography, Lydia, The Life of Lydia Semenoff, Daughter of Esperanto, as a main and instrumental resource for this podcast. So please subscribe and learn about this amazing woman who traveled through 3 continents in an effort to bring unity through the power of language. You can also find more information on our Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at Who Was She Podcast. Music was composed and performed by Sam Red. I am your host, Tara Jabari. Join us next time as we begin our journey about Lydia Semenoff.
Hi, everybody. It's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything: pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant, 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.
Are you sick of the same old stale podcasts? Well, then join Vanessa and Darren as they dissect movies of all kinds. The 2 lifelong cinema lovers bring their favorites, curiosities, and first-time watches to the operating table and inject them with a healthy dose of snark. Then there's the waiting room, where they examine books and short stories. So just look for them on Apple Podcasts and where fine podcasts are available. They're part of the Legion Podcast Network. Follow them on Twitter at VD Clinic Pod. Join them on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/VD Clinic Pod. Or email them at vdclinicpod@gmail.com. They're ready to cure what ails you. And still, they just might be a little contagious.
We now continue with our program.
What was really brilliant was also Shatner's brief arc on the Defenders. They briefly used this black and white segment show even on Boston Legal as a character origin story, showing what Denny Crane once was.
Oh.
And, this was originally a Studio One production. It was a 2-parter. Studio One was known for having, stage plays of the week performed by local and accomplished actors and Sidney Lumet type directors helming them. And this was brilliant in that it just showed, it was so good. It got its own, free season arc, and later, they reunited and did some TV movies later in the 90s on Showtime. But, this showed E.G. Marshall, how awesome he was, and
Yes.
Shatner, has some great speeches on here. I'm actually I have season 1 recently bought, and so I'm gonna go for that again. I was not able to see his appearances on Kung Fu, Arrest and Trial. I can say, however, that I'm not including his many roles on Mission Impossible, because in a lot of those he's basically just a featured extra or goon of the week who doesn't get any lines or much to do. I gotta hand it though to him for, I think he was on The Outer Limits. I can't confirm, but I gotta hand him also to How the West Was Won.
Yeah, he was on The Outer Limits.
He was on The Outer Limits.
Okay, perfect. But How the West Was Won. This is a 2-episode role. I've only seen the first of these 2 episodes, but he is brilliant in the speech he gives as like an injured Civil War general, just recounting the horror he saw during battle, and he's got like a scar on one. He's not a Blackbeard or one eye only guy, but you can tell he's like blind in one eye, and he is just viciously describing it as detailed as you can get for 60s, 70s television standards, and yet just really intense without hamming it at that point, and definitely one of his career best roles.
Well, there's another movie. There's 2 movies that I kind of remember seeing, when they were replayed or something like that. Pray for the Wildcats, which was,
I haven't seen that.
Okay, him, Andy Griffith, Robert Reed, and Marjo Gortner.
If I did see it, I just don't remember it. But yeah, he had plenty of all-star cast movies.
Yeah.
His number was available.
Andy Griffith plays a what's the sociopathic boss of this company. So he takes the 3 of them out on like this motorcycle thing, and there's these horrible things happen. And then there's The Babysitter with him.
That is an interesting one because instead of being a Lifetime type movie, it is basically another
it
cat and mouse type movie.
Yeah. Him, Patty Duke Austin, and Stephanie Zimbalist. And it's
Shatner had his share of mediocre TV movies, but this isn't one of them, that is for sure.
And from what it was kind of like Hand That Rocks the Cradle, almost.
Exactly, Single White Female, all those kinds of movies that were back then.
Yeah, it's pre that. And the thing I could never get was how good looking like Stephanie Zimbalist was when she was younger.
Oh, baby.
I've seen her on The Love Boat. I've seen her on this is before Remington Steele. When Remington Steele was on, she was hot.
Wasn't Shatner on The Love Boat?
I keep thinking he was for some reason. I don't know.
I think we're thinking of Ed Asner. That might have been why.
Might have been. But you notice something? He went to Mission Impossible
like 5 different times, and I only remember one moment where he plays like an undercover agent who shoots a terrorist at a diner and gets the info he has.
But it's weird because when you read about his career and Nimoy's career after Star Trek took up, because remember, he went from Star Trek and he jumped over to Mission Impossible to play Paris, the magician guy. And
yes.
Then he
and
does
DeForest Kelly, same kind of thing. They had all seen each other, sometimes even in the same Gunsmoke and Rawhide episodes.
Yeah.
And so they all was like, I know that guy. He's a real asshole. They were always in that mindset before they got close on track and had each other in their will.
And then you watch Shatner's career, and from what I read, the sad thing was Shatner was living out of a trailer.
Right. He's past his divorce. He lost everything. He just had horses and bad movie roles. So it really is interesting, just that in between, embracing the fame, not even realizing that many people were moved by the Kirk character, even basing their geekdom off of it, saying, oh, movie god, TV god. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention his 2-episode and heavily referenced role on Psych. Psych had their share of track actors and horror sci-fi people like Bruce Campbell making cameos, guest spots. But it was so awesome seeing him on that because he got to play, Jules's estranged father, who's, a former thief who can't remain honest for just a single minute, and he's praised by the duo, and it's just so funny because well, you know, Sean and Gus are just like, oh, he's awesome. He's taking us on adventures. And Jules is like, no, he's still the same bastard who left my mom and lies, and buys me stuff that he clearly stole. It's just so fucking awesome because you keep thinking he's going to do the right thing. He's like, well, he did something well intended, but he still stole something or is wanted by the cops in like some other country. And you know, the show was filmed in like Vancouver or Toronto, so you know it wasn't a surprise that they got another fellow Canadian actor like the Shat on there. But it was really hysterical how, you know, both his appearances, he's just heavily featured and he brings a lot to the role and even gets to be slightly dramatic without, you know, silly. He compliments the whole thing, and this definitely moves us on to his honorable mentions. I gotta mention Shit My Dad Says. I watched a bunch of 7/7 Sunset Strip. He was apparently on like 4 appearances on that. So I didn't see any of the appearances on that. I don't know how, but I didn't. But that was a pretty awesome noir show. You know, free, you know, detectives, private eyes. You know, checking out crime.
Sunset Strip. Who's
right?
that?
That 7/7 Sunset Strip.
I always get that and Hawaiian Eye mixed up with each other. I don't know why.
That it is one of those, just like Hawaii 5-0.
And he
get stuck in.
Too.
I'm not surprised. Did he? Was he on there 3 different times, like Robert Loja?
Let me see, because I can look it up for you. He was on $6 Million Man, right? The sixth,
Okay.
which was Gary Collins' show. Hawaii 5-0, he's only on once.
He was apparently on Naked City and, you know, Sequest DSV. He apparently plays a Russian spy, and everyone remarked how it was the worst episode of the entire first season.
He's on Ironside.
I know I wouldn't be surprised. That's like one of his first appearances. Yeah.
Ironside was post Star Trek. And
yeah. I know I haven't re-seen the whole series, but I know he is on Stephen King's Haven, which was a really good show on Sci-Fi Channel. It was like Twin Peaks and X-Files. And he apparently played a key member of the town in like later seasons and got to be just kind of laid back, kind of campy, but not, you know, directly funny or overacting, just kind of just reserved and yet kind of mysterious. So that was kind of interesting. I haven't seen, again, the episode of Kung Fu that he's on, but he's in like the 2nd or 3rd season playing like just like a random Civil War general or something who meets, you know, Carradine's, you know, character. I don't know if he's like the villain of the week, but I know, ironically, many people have talked about it. I know Eric McCormick of Will and Grace fame said when he was working on Free Enterprise with him, he never seen an episode of Track or TJ Hooker in his life, but he knew him as the host of Rescue 911, which you should totally see if you like, especially if you like unsolved mysteries. He makes him narrating and being the host, saying, "They are in a seed of trouble."
A man gets caught in an escalator. What do they do? What
do they do?
He's
God.
in a very interesting television movie that never went to. That was a pilot movie called which was in '72. And
what was it called again? Sorry.
The People. Now it's
For the People. That's right. It became I think I saw that was like a 1-season show, and it was in Canada.
Yeah, it was actually on ABC. From what I understand, ABC.
Oh.
What happened was that Kim Darby, who was in True Grit, goes to this town where they have like an Amish community, and he's the doctor there. But it turns out people are aliens with paranormal powers.
Gotcha.
Hundreds, and they kind of like they kind of like integrate themselves into society.
Gotcha. So it is a total,
Yeah.
Monsters on Mulberry Street,
Yeah.
X-Files type thing.
It's kind of like, it reminds me of The Village. That
Village of the Damned. Gotcha.
No, not Village. Damn, more like The Village meets what freaking movie was that?
A better version of it, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that. But we're
Twin
forgetting,
Peaks. Gotcha.
We're forgetting his funniest cameo.
Oh.
Police Squad.
He's on an episode of Police Squad. Okay.
Squad, yes.
For those who did not know, that was where Naked Gun started off. It felt as a TV show, but they decided, let's try it again as a movie, and the rest is history. But it had Leslie Nielsen, all the other people, mostly featured, before, save for OJ and Priscilla Presley. But yeah, no, I didn't know he was on that. I must confess, I gotta go through that whole thing, and that's awesome. So what was his role like on there as a guest spot?
What they would do is they would have special guest star, and the person would die. So
perfect.
Special guest star William Shatner. So he's in a restaurant eating, right? And he comes in, shoots at him. He shoots back, and then also he puts the gun down. He takes there's a girl with him. He takes the drink. He drinks it. Then he starts clutching his throat like he's poisoned. I'm like, I just remember there's like special guest star William Shatner. Like they'd have special guest star, and a car goes flying by.
Right. And they're making fun of Mannix, how it would always have a car explosion at the beginning, or some private eye finding a dead person, someone, dead in their car from, gasoline, other crazy shit. I have a confession to make. I did see the documentary or Q&A limited events through Fandango of Shatner, We Live in His World, or some shit like that, back in like 2016 or something like that, maybe 2013, going even further. And he talked about how he created the death scene in Star Trek Generations, and how he talked about it actually inspired how I did a death scene in some acting classes, including even stage combat. I would just do similar stuff, just roll my head over, just go, just show just the deadness in my eyes and everything. But he had just a perfect thing. He's like, literally, how do you do the death scene? You literally think about death, how there's nothing there, everything. And
very simple.
It's as deep as he's ever gotten in interviews, even just talking about acting. The rest of the time it's always just, playing up to the camera saying, oh, I love to steal the spotlight. But that was a really great interview there where he just talked about, how he took it as a dare from, again, Christopher Plummer and Ricardo Montalban. But there, especially, he's like, now that the story is done, the character is, sacrifice himself. And, he's a very spiritual person, so it was just, he really did just try to say, how does the soul leave the body? And it's like, damn, that's so dark for that short of a moment. And yet you see the death scene away, and it's like, I remember everyone just starts cheering because now you got that extra input. It means something so much more.
And he has the line at the end of that where he said, it was fun.
Yeah.
Which is a great, I wanted to say something else, like, like just to say it was fun is a perfect way to end it, just to say it was fun.
Right.
I thought he was going to say something like, tell Spock.
Yeah, tell somebody I love him. Like, now, there's no one left that he knows of. They're all dead. And he's just like, it was fun.
No.
It would have been ironic if he accidentally called Picard Jim. That would have been fun.
Yeah.
Wrong person. Okay, I'll tell whoever Jim is.
Tell Sulu he's a prick.
So more or less, this has been really fun navigating this person because, again, no failure, no ability to even truly 100% fail. Just maybe miscalculations, but just no fear of dying, basically, on stage or in person. And when he stopped being able to recreate himself now at that point, he's like, well, now I'm just going to surprise you a bit. So kind of like Lou Diamond Phillips yesterday when we talked about him, it's just, you never know what to expect, and that's his greatest asset, I think. And then when you know what to expect, being hammy, at that point, it's just interesting because then it takes a totally different chapter of, here's a man who's going to be unusual kinds of funny each time.
Well, he had that record come out in the 60s, The Transformed Man.
Mm-hmm. And then just being villains and other kinds of stuff, cowboys. Yeah. I also just realized I did not mention White Comanche.
Oh, God.
But that is definitely, that comes on commonly, like once a year on Turner Classic Movies, like Cult Movie Drive-In on Fridays. And it's an interesting movie because everyone's joked kind of since then that that's kind of where you start seeing the true Shatner expose his face. But, he has a big dilemma where he's playing twin brothers, one who's converted like a quarter Native American, fighting a cowboy. It's a very unusual Italian kind of Western, and it could have easily been Kirk in the holodeck misbehaving, but
or Kirk saying he's Kirok. I am Kirok.
There you go, Kirok. Yeah. You are Klingon invading my town. Yeah, basically. The cowboy Shatner is basically going all High Noon Gary Cooper, and the rest, the other one is basically being, evil Native American, and whitewashed face. It is absolutely worth seeing.
Can I just say something? Why did they always get like him playing a Native American is like Humphrey Bogart playing an Irishman in Dark Victory?
Right. They just weren't sensitive back then, so it's just it really is kind of hysterical seeing it from this point on, and you're like, good God, it's fucking 60s. And this is one of those, I think it also has another, Mexican American director spoke limited English, so they kind of just leave Shatner to his own devices, and that's kind of where the greatness is born in this movie. You totally got to see it, Daniel, if you haven't.
Definitely looking it up.
I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. It's definitely in some of those Mill Creek, 10 movie packs.
They probably got that in like 5 Lee Van Cleef movies to follow after that.
I'm surprised they never crossed paths.
I wouldn't
cross
put it
paths
past
with Jimmy Stewart.
I know he worked with Shatner worked with Spencer Tracy on Judgment at Nuremberg.
Oh, there you go. So, and I knew I was forgetting another courtroom movie. I always got it mixed up with Andersonville, even though I know I'd seen both.
And his first role is in Brothers Karamazov. He plays the younger brother.
That's a really good one. And he's working against other Mystery Science Theater favorite, but never actually featured on that show, Richard Basehart. His brother.
Yeah. Richard Basehart.
Richard. Yeah, that's a good gypsy. Richard Basehart. And Richard Basehart is definitely, along with Peter Graham, just one of those, like, not hard to do my voice, but I am Richard Basehart signing off.
Well, I always love it how, like, they break it, get off Mystery Science Theater for a minute, but it's like they break it to Gypsy that Richard Basehart wasn't the original commander of the Seaview on Voyage to the It was really, Walter Pidgeon, and she's like, oh, But,
right.
People don't realize, I think a lot of people don't realize Star Trek became a cartoon for 1 or 2 seasons. And that was the first time he really did animation, because remember, most is Bill Shatner.
Yeah.
He did 2 animated to his credits. So he's covered everything,
He really can't do any wrong. He can't do any worse. If he does a piece of shit the next day that's on Amazon Prime, you're just going to say, well, that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
I have another funny story to say. My father was working at NCTC, and he was getting with some of the company executives who were always finding, nationwide college, looking for someone to, again, be a spokesperson for their, various college ads that play on TV. and they, believe it or not, the chairman who was talking about it, they're always getting, famous actors who they, few million to do the commercial.
Yeah.
And they range from anyone from Ernie Hudson to, Gerald McRaney. And the person clearly doesn't know who Shatner is. Like, they know they're a TV actor, but they don't know what they're famous or infamous for. And he's like, we're thinking of getting William Shatner. And my dad had to just hold back a guffaw. It's like, you clearly don't know who the fuck that is. I mean, that's William Shatner.
I'm William Shatner of Priceline.
Oh, William Shatner. And the
I'm
Priceline
Shatner.
ad was pretty funny because in the last final one I think he did, he's running towards the sea with a surfboard, and you can tell it's so not Shatner. It's like a stunt double with a very faker toupee than Shatner's in.
I think that's the in joke too.
It might have been, but I
Yeah.
mean, insurance purposes, there's no way you're going to make the Shat go surfing.
No, you're
towards
not
the
going
sea.
to.
I am William Shatner.
Well, while we were talking about Shatner, I told you about how I did my generation, like the Who's My Generation as William Shatner.
My generation. Yeah.
People try to put us down, talking about my generation, just because we get around. Talking about my generation.
Anyone who has not heard any of the songs he's done with Nimoy, you're missing out. I mean, and his recent ones were even better because, I mean, he covered freaking, Blinded Me with Science.
Yeah.
Blinded Me with Science.
I heard that song you did, Common People, way back, like 2005. I love that. I love that song.
That was really good because, he, I think it was co-produced with like Ben Folds, and
yeah,
you didn't expect it, and so where can we find you all on the interwebs? Tony, I'll let you weigh in. You got any cosplay events coming up soon, or?
Well, there's really not a whole lot going on right now.
Yeah, I know. We're still in the shithole, but I mean, is anything probably maybe virtual? Maybe some kind of fun stuff. You've done some awesome Star Trek and horror fantasy kind of cosplays before.
I mean,
mind blowing.
The next big thing is Scarborough Fair, so that is a go.
Nice.
So that's April and May on weekends.
You going as a Knight of the Round Table or a Warlord or a Gypsy fortune teller?
I've got several different outfits that I wear.
Nice. Is it one every day?
Yeah, I've got something different that I could wear something different every weekend.
For sure. And I hope we didn't overtalk too much for you, but it was great just finally getting you on the show.
Oh no, it was cool. It's cool. Nice
to talk about
ever-changing
actor who's just surprised us, for better or worse, and just no
fear.
I
really
for
wasn't
a long time.
Wasn't aware of all the stuff he did, but it's all good. But
just no fear. Like,
but yeah, there's really no indoor events like cons or things like that happening right now.
Gotcha.
It's going to be a few months. I think their Texas Frightmare weekend is like the end of April.
Interesting. No, I wonder what guests they'll get then.
I think it's still on, but
all right. Well, hopefully it's better by then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, again, lovely having you on here. JJ, Bruno, what do you got?
I've still got the late night movie and TV page up on Facebook.
Okay, please feel free to share some.
I've got
photos
it up there. I haven't been doing it a lot lately with my, getting my mom's house and fixing it up and everything. But what I'm going to be doing is I've been watching a lot of stuff off of Tubi. So like, I think we discussed it. I was watching Cobra Verde, and Fitzcarraldo, and I was doing the whole five set Werner Herzog, Klaus Kinski.
We could definitely do a Werner Herzog special.
I want to do that because I love Werner's
Baby
work.
Yoda is real. It is real.
I remember Kinski telling me if he did not leave, he was going to leave without me. And I threatened him with a shotgun. If he went around the river bend, he'd probably be dead.
Well, I'm even surprised I didn't bring up that.
Cobra Verde is a
Incubus
movie
is as close as you get to it.
Incubus is close you get to Cobra Verde.
Kinski, Herzog film, yeah.
Whoa. And then I'm probably gonna be posting a lot more stuff about. I gotta find a lot more of these kung fu movies and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, Navajo Joe.
This year was the first year they didn't have Exhumed Film Fest. Last year was going to be last year was the last.
If you got any invites, I'd love to see when the next watch together or screening is.
Well, there's going to be a sci-fi thing in Boston. It's $75. It's like a 24-hour film fest, but it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff. It's like Buckaroo Banzai.
There's another movie. I'm surprised it wasn't in.
Just the stuff that I grew up on because I loved all that old cheesy stuff. But I'm probably going to start writing a lot more about stuff. Like I gotta talk about Gabe Kaplan's 1978-79 movie Fast Break.
Oh God!
Where he played the coach of a basketball team. I've got to do with Dirk Bogarde.
DMX Bandits or some shit.
BMX Bandits is probably up on the list. And then there's Message from Space, which is the Japanese version of Star Wars. It came out a year after Star Wars.
Oh, that's right. I think I have seen that one on Fox
and
movie channel.
It's on Amazon. It's Sonny Vic. When you see the preview, an international cast headed by Vic Morrow.
Is it more outrageous than War of the Robots?
Oh,
one of those other Japanese dubbed movies.
Let's take these three movies in consideration. All right. Message from Space, Things to Come with Jack Palance.
Same.
Yes, and then Battle Beyond the Stars.
Oh God.
It's a trifecta.
I was having so much fun with that in college, and then I just finally saw Mr. Science Theater's version on it, and I was like, "This is really a rough set."
Well, let me say something right now.
Not Beyond the Stars, Star Crash. My bad, but same difference.
Star Crash was. I didn't. I'll tell you the truth. I didn't like what they did with Star Crash because they could have thrown in so many more jokes about Star Wars in there.
I got to compare the Riff Tracks version too. So I mean,
the Riff Tracks I have to see, but I'm going to tell you right now. One day when I get a podcast of my own, we're going to do the Channel 9 movies that we saw as kids.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up